This is Evolutionary Radio. This is your host, Trevor Kouritzin. As always, my co-host, Steve Smee, is joining me.
Yes, what's up, everybody? We have Coach Trevor for this episode. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Coach.
Let's see. I'm a college dropout, biomed, biochem, ex-competitive bodybuilder, and now I'm with an enhanced athlete, and I'm able to put together some of the ideas I was not allowed to do in school and make those with bodybuilding. So kind of boring and kind of interesting at the same time, depending on where you're at, with bodybuilding.
The first thing that interests me is ex-competitive bodybuilder. What made you stop competing?
I had an accident. I fell down some stairs and I was in a wheelchair for a while afterwards. And this is right after I had another shoulder tear and just injury after injury. My left leg, I almost didn't walk on the left leg. So that alone was just enough to wake me up. And while I was in the hospital, I found out some health problems. And so it was just kind of, you got to make a choice. I could have went back to it and ended up worse off or dead the next year, or take care of my health and find a way to live outside of it. But that was my life for 10 years, just every day, 10 years of eat, sleep, train, go to school. That was it.
So how'd you get the name Coach Trevor? Are you a coach out there, or are you is this just a name that's stuck?
I wouldn't say coach, but I do take clients for shows. I was doing in that sport. There's a lot of things that you don't talk about. It's taboo. So when you work with certain athletes, and I'm going to tell you the same thing, you never hear of certain names or people that kind of might be at your hotel putting you on an IV bag behind the scenes, like a Duchenne type person. So when they say Coach Trevor, it was from that, and Anthony kind of coined that term. No one's ever called me that before.
How'd you link up with an enhanced athlete?
I had a friend of mine I was doing a favor for. I was getting ready for a Sacramento show, and we had 6 weeks to get him in shape, but we put a few pounds on him for the show. And I didn't have a tanning gun to do his tanning before. My buddy, Coach Marco, if you ever seen him in the videos, I've known him a long time. I asked him to use his tanning gun. He said, sure, come on over. But it was at Anthony's house. While we were there, he brings up DMT. And I think you asked me about DMT, and we just started going back and forth about what I knew about it, what he knew about it. And then he asked me to do a video, and I said, okay. I did a video with him a few days later after the SAC show. And I went down to Mexico, didn't think anything of it. I come back, and the video's on YouTube, and people are talking about it. So it kind of changed everything that I was doing at the time with my name being out there. And it just went from there.
So you're definitely a smart guy. I mean, I've watched some of your videos. You're not an idiot. Where did you come up with all this info?
So between school and the first person I ever learned from was Dan Duchenne. But before I even knew anything about bodybuilding, I was trying to learn. I couldn't grow. I was 115 pounds in high school, so I just started going to the bookstore, Barnes and Nobles, and I would start with anything in biology. So I would learn the human body, then I would learn how cells work. You need food, the basics, I guess you would say. Then I would read the Muscle magazine, and I started comparing the two. And then as I go to school and I'm doing this, I guess, quest for bodybuilding, you're using bro science, but you're going back and forth between bro science and actual science, and both have its legitimacy. Some things on paper that work really well are not applicable in real life. So it was constant trial and error, constant experimentation, which has led to health problems, but it's made me find ways that work a lot more efficiently and how to go about it safe. I've pretty much learned every method about how to get to A to Z without side effects or with side effects, if you want to do it faster or shorter.
So before we get into the hardcore topics a lot of our listeners want to know about, tell us a little bit about where you're at right now. I see the background. I heard a little birdie said that you're in Asia. What took you there? How long have you been there? and tell us a little bit about what it's like living there. Are you originally an American that moved over there? Tell us kind of the differences.
So no, I was born in USA. I was born in San Diego in La Mesa, and we just happened to be out here in Thailand. This is a lot of friends are out here, and as you can see, it's beautiful. Not all of Thailand's like this. The first few times I went to Thailand, I did not like it, but like here, it's called Phuket. And Phuket's very beautiful. They got the beach. It's a touristy kind of area. So we come out here, I guess, for friends, business, pleasure, kind of everything. Videos. It gives us new scenery, changes things, because just being outside of the USA, I think both of us, we function better, we feel better, we're in our zone, we're not stressed out. As soon as you get to USA, it's just, for some reason, you do this with your shoulders, and you start tensing, you start worrying, and you just don't accomplish the same thing. There's too many distractions. You know, you have friends or obligations, whatever it has to be. So being out of country is just kind of a norm now, I guess you would say.
So
We just happen to be.
the $1 million question everyone wants to know: are steroids legal in Thailand?
Legal? Are they legal or illegal?
Legal, well, whatever. Same question.
No, they're not legal.
Really, I thought they were.
Well, they're not legal in the United States, but you can still buy them.
Is it easier to get gear in Thailand, or is it just like the US?
Yeah, no, it's very easy. I wouldn't say too much because, you know, putting that out in the open, but it is very, very easy. You can walk down any street and find them pretty much. You can find it.
Is there a lot of people over there that use steroids? Kind of like in the United States, if you go to any type of franchise gym, I would wager in a, you know, decent economic structure type of place, like San Diego, for example, what you mentioned. If you go to San Diego, go to a franchise gym, I bet you half the guys in there have used or are using steroids. Is that the same thing in Thailand? Because I don't view Asian people as being very muscular. So do they inject and still look skinny? I mean,
well, actually, yeah, we've been to so many countries like Philippines. They would be taking lots of methyl testosterone and testosterones. You would never know these people were taking them. Thailand is a little different. I would say more the gym goers would be taking them, but there's also Muay Thai. So I've seen some pretty big guys at the gym here, but you go to other Asian cultures, and when they're taking steroids, you just don't know. It's really hard to tell. And I think it's a food thing. It's not just genetics, because they have their food and training just so up and down. They're 30, 40 years behind us. And it's not working for them. But here in Thailand, I've seen a lot of much bigger guys. The people who go to the gym, yes, outside, nobody really knows about steroids. And the same in Latin America. You can buy steroids at a pharmacy in Latin America, but they want to buy supplements because it shows big muscle on supplements. They don't know that steroids is what they're taking. It's called a hormone over there. So nobody knows about hormones being steroids. They think supplements are.
what do you mean by that 30 years behind diet and training? Can you kind of dumb that down to what that means? Because I've never been to Thailand, and I'm not really sure what that means. So can you explain that a little bit?
I wouldn't say Thailand is 30 years, maybe some parts, but other Asian cultures or countries that we've been to in cities, when you see their diets and what their coaches are having them do, it's so far behind. They're doing just things, experimentation. They don't know why they're doing it. That's the biggest thing. They don't know why they're doing it. They're doing it because they think that's what works, or they heard that's what works.
Steve, I had a couple clients reach out to me who are in the Philippines, they were in Thailand, they're in Asia, and you just tell them to have like a protein source at every meal, and they're like, for them, that's like new age information. They didn't even think of that.
Yeah, in India is the same way. When you tell them that, protein means now go have curry with rice and whatever it is. They'll eat chips and Snickers. And as long as there's some protein, they're okay. They'll drink protein. They're very bizarre, but they're just, when I say behind, they're behind in just knowledge and information with diet.
I don't know why the information is so behind, but what Coach Trevor says is completely true. Like, I had some people reach out to me in the Philippines, and they wanted a nice arm. Like, they wanted nice arms and nice abs, and all they would do was arms and sit-ups. Like it would never train their legs, they would never train their back, and it was, and like you kind of like laugh at that almost, but like they didn't know any better. Like as soon as you told them, no, you actually have to need to train your legs, you have to train your back, otherwise your body's not going to grow. They're like, oh, thanks for the help. Like they weren't being like a gym douche and just training arms because they you know what I mean? Like they didn't train legs, so they didn't know they had to.
Yeah, what I think what it is America has, and certain countries have all this information just available everywhere. Muscle magazines, we've been through it. The Mr. Olympia started through an American organization, or weeder than them. They don't have that anywhere else. They don't have this information or access. If they go to YouTube and look for information, let's say, it's all in English. You look for anything on bodybuilding, it's all in English. It's only just recently it started expanding outside of that zone. So you don't speak English and you don't know where to look for, you don't know all these American places that are teaching this. Who else do you have that's done it before? And over there's not many people. So they just follow what's going on there. Kind of like when bodybuilding started here in America. But now because of how the steroid system, you have bad steroids too on top of it. So they're taking horrible steroids at the same time, thinking it's normal, and their diets are terrible and nothing adds up.
Tell us a little bit about tourism in Thailand, because I've heard it's one of the best places to go visit. Is it true that massages are like $5? You can eat like a king for like $2?
Yeah, that with happy endings too. So, and those are everywhere. You have to watch where you go. I mean, if you want a good massage, you have to ask around. As soon as you start feeling them doing the touchy-feely little poke prod at you to test you out, then you know what's going to happen. But a lot of them too, they're really good massages, and then they just start doing that. So you gotta be prepared. If they make you take showers and stuff, yeah, you'll know. But you can ask them up front here too. It's a little different.
I heard that prostitution is legal in Thailand. Is that true?
No, it's not.
So that's another myth.
But it's there. It might be kind of everywhere. So it's same with steroids. Very easy to find, but not necessarily legal.
Okay.
So I mean, is the laws over there kind of like the police kind of like the other way with everything? Is that what it sounds like?
Yeah, that's why I don't want to talk too much about it, because if people are, yeah, the same.
You don't want to get your door banged in while we're on the podcast. That'd be great. That'd be great for the ratings, by the way.
Yeah, their government tries really hard. They do a lot of good stuff here, so to prevent those things. And if for the record, I'm not suicidal. I love my life, and if you find me dead, it's not me. Please.
Don't jump out the window behind you. So a lot of our listeners, they want to know about steroids, like the juice. So tell us right off the bat, what are some of the myths, the bro sciences? Because I'm sure you read the forums. I'm sure a lot of people hit you up with questions, or on social media, whatever. What's going around right now that kind of drives you crazy when it comes to steroids? Some of the bro science that you hear on a day-to-day basis, you think?
So I stopped with the forums for a long time, but it's the same pattern. It's the same with bodybuilding. It's just an evolution. It's an evolution of stupidity. So the bro science and steroids it goes so far and beyond. You have, I would say, not to use a name, but like Boston, for example, you have some guys that advocate very high dosing because they heard about this with no regards for chemical compounds and combinations and side effects of these, or why they would do it. Then you have the other guys that this one big guy at the gym was taking this cycle and he recommended this. That's why you always do it this way. And this is how they did it in the 80s. It's been the same thing. And it just with peptides and other hormones or peptide hormones that come out, that's the only thing that's changing. It's just dosing has been the same. There's nothing new anymore. There's blast and cruise. There's this method from the 80s. That's why they were so lean. This method from the 90s. And it's repetitive. and it's only evolving when new drugs are being put out in the market, like peptides. So it's all of it drives me crazy. That's why I don't read anything online.
Do you want to get into listener questions, Steve?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, let me pull them up. We got some interesting listener questions. What is the ladyboy thing all about?
So one night, Anthony banged a bunch of ladyboys, and he was really embarrassed about it. So he tried to make it a joke and put it on me, and it's stuck with me ever since.
What is a ladyboy?
It's a dude.
Oh,
A dude.
really?
Yeah, a dude that dresses like a girl, or you know what? It's a transgender transgender individual. That's what it is. So somebody transitioning.
How would you not, like, okay, so you're gonna have sex with this person, you take off all their clothes, how do you not see a huge penis and decide, okay, this is a bad idea, I'm not gonna do it?
You know, I guess that would depend on the person. I think, I don't know if you just, I don't know how that works actually. How does it work, Anthony? what is your?
It's the trend. Blame the trend for that. It's probably the trend, you know?
All right, but you had a ladyboy that you bonded with on a deep level, right, Trevor?
There was, okay, it is real though. It is very real here, in Philippines especially. I had a night, actually there was 2 events, but one was an actual event. The second one was, I think I talked to 5 or 6 girls who turned out to be guys. People would tell me this after the fact, and I would come back and be like, dude, this one's a girl. I know it's a girl. And nope, it's a guy. And it's so believable because of how the system works out there and how young it starts, that their bone structure as they develop is different. So they look more feminine in those cultures than actual females, some of them. So you have to really, really watch out, or just mind your own business and don't even get involved in any of it.
I can back you up on that. I used to model, and the gays are very heavily involved in modeling. And they invited me to a drag show once, and I went, just to be social. A lot of those males dressed as females look hotter than some females you'll see. Like, you would never guess it was a man.
Yeah, and there's some places too. Again, I won't say much, but what we learned, and remember in Singapore when they talked about other countries, the parents could sell them as children, and then they tie off their balls, put them on hormones, and they develop as a female with boy bone structure, which is different than the female bone structure. And so they basically grow up even prettier than the girls, some of them. So it's impossible to tell. You gotta be on your guard. Gaydars don't really work.
Why would a parent sell their kid though? Is it for like prostitution?
Well, there's some, not all, I mean, children cost a lot of money, and there's a lot of problems, economic problems or social problems that in some countries not many people have seen I don't even think we've seen the poorest parts of those countries, but it gets pretty bad in some places. So what we would see as horrible, which is horrible in any sense, the way you look at it, maybe they needed money for something, they owed a debt or something along those lines were involved where they had to do it, but maybe they just wanted money too. So those countries are very different than the U.S. That's the dark side you don't see much of. There's really not, when I say it like that, there's not as much as you would think, but it exists over there.
Well, during the Great Depression in the United States, guys, parents were selling their kids as well in the United States during the 20s and early 30s. So, I mean, this happened here too. And we still have slaves in the United States. We have sex slaves. We have teenagers kidnapped that are turned into sex slaves. So that happens in the United States too. But yeah, it's bad in a lot of parts of the world. Why do they do it? It's money. I mean, that's the bottom line. And that's how that's a sad reality. Yeah.
There's some in and Latino or Latin America cultures where it's not their choice. They maybe owe a debt to some bad people, and those people come and collect family or kidnap them that way. Yeah, so there is that. There's both sides to it.
Second question, how the saying "Trevor too big, Trevor paid Duber" came about?
We were in a train, and actually it was here in Thailand, and these things are so compacted, and these people in Thailand are very small bone structure, not very tall. And I think I was around 255, 260 or so at the time. And we're sitting, me and Anthony, in this little subway, sorry, not train, full of the small people, and we take up maybe 6 spots between me and him. And we're sitting there in this place, and nobody's talking, everyone just stares. And Anthony pulls out the phone and starts recording, and with an Asian accent starts saying, "Oh, you too big, you pay double," but like a Japanese accent. So we're in Thailand, and he's doing a Japanese accent. People, they know this. They're not dumb. They know that he's doing an Asian accent. It's not even their accent. And so, of course, I'm embarrassed and pissed off, and he's just doing it. He does it everywhere. He would start doing it everywhere. And then it just took over, and people started saying that, "You pay double, you pay tripper." So it just started that way, because I'd go use a urinal, and I couldn't fit maybe in the stall. And he would start recording me take a piss, so the whole world could see. And it took off, but it's not even the right accent.
Next question. Have you found the hidden steroids of Machu Picchu?
No, we're close. We're still looking. That's part of the reason why we're touring around the world. We're looking for this. We heard that it is in Machu Picchu, but sources tell us there's a few other spots. So that's why we're touring around the world for doing our videos for that quest.
Where is Machu Picchu?
Well, people say it's in South America, but Central America. But we found that there's a few different spots that it could be. So it's a little bit different. When you're talking about the hidden steroids, we think that Machu Picchu, the name is something else. So we're trying to find many different places, many different countries for this thing.
Last question, is Tony Huge really what he seems like in the videos?
He's just the same person. I mean, he's an open book. What you see on video is the same person he is when I talk to him every day. The only difference is maybe YouTube filters that, and you don't get to see I mean, when I say open book, he will tell you in front of 50 people he doesn't even know if he has an STD or something crazy. He's that open, and he's literally the same person. Since I've known him, I've never heard a lie come out of that guy's mouth from him or anyone else. So yeah, he is the same person you see in video, maybe just a little more than that, because you don't get to see everything behind the scenes, but it's definitely him.
I wonder if he was so suppressed from telling the truth, from being a lawyer, that now he's like the reverse, like he has to tell the truth.
You know what? That's a good point.
It's kind of like an 18-year-old schoolgirl who's like in Catholic school and then like has never even like made out, and then finally she moves out and goes on like a huge binger and like fucks every guy. It's kind of like
the Denver thing. Yeah, it could be that, because I think I have the same problem spending so much time in school. I clash heads with the that certain industry. My mother is a nurse. I have family that does that. And we always clash heads because they believe one thing and I believe another. And with Enhanced Athlete and Anthony, it was, the whole anarchy symbol doesn't mean just anarchy. It just means freedom. And I believe that all of those years of schooling was the reason I was in Enhanced Athlete and wanting to expose a lot of this stuff and, tell people, there's ways to treat cancer. There's ways to treat so many diseases outside of just bodybuilding. And I couldn't do that in school. If I was a doctor, I couldn't do that. They don't protect you. Then you get sued. you lose your license and you're done. And so I think it's the same thing. Maybe it is for him being a lawyer, and maybe it is wasting my life in school and just having that same grudge, I guess, doing the exact opposite.
Here's another user question. He's saying he's using Trenbolone and he's having hypo symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that is? And you know anything about that?
So anytime you're not doing a controlled experiment, that's why some of these videos are so hard. They'll ask me a blunt question like that. Well, some people start taking a drug or like Trenbolone and start eating more. They change their diet drastically. They start doing cardio. Maybe they're prepping for something. There's so many variables that change that they don't tell you. The only thing I would tell you that this could be possible is just it does make you more sensitive to IGF, and nutrient partitioning is different. It could be changing how your body's handling glucose because of this. Aside from that, we don't know all the other factors that's going on with this guy. So I've had hundreds of clients where they tell me they're getting this reaction from a steroid, and then come to find out they started a prep on a keto diet and they think their gear's fake. And it's like, no, you went from bulking to you're not even eating fats now. You're blaming the steroids on it, because the steroids, his tests were fine. So there's so many factors you got to get to give a real answer. And that's kind of what happens on forums. Somebody says that, and then they give you an answer. Then you get 100 different answers because they're not looking at the bigger picture. But if it were to happen from Trenbolone, it would be the increased sensitivity to IGF.
Interesting. Do you still take coaching clients on, Coach Trevor?
Yes, still doing that.
And that's all online?
Yeah. So I do, yeah. It's mostly done online, but like I'll do the video calls and things like that. You have a lot of coaches that give you these cookie cutter diets, and I can do it all day. Just give you a, I guess Colombo style diet, and then you got a 12-week program, and I don't have to do anything. But also my name would be on the line. So I don't think I've had too much bad publicity with coaching.
What is the difference between, give us an example of a cookie cutter diet program, because I think I know what you mean by that. Would it be something like, chicken, brown rice, and broccoli, and then eat every 2 hours type of thing?
It would be, say, 5 meals a day. It would say at the top, 5 meals a day, and your body weight was 200 pounds. It'll tell you they won't tell you this, but it'll be 2 grams of protein per pound of body weight. Say 1 gram of carbohydrates per pound of body weight, 1 gram of fat, or 2 grams of fat. And they divide your meals up accordingly. And then you're done with your cheat meal on the weekend, and then repeat for the next week, and then add cardio. They do it in increments. So when you have a list of foods, they do calories in versus calories out. So each week or every few weeks or so, they just go, okay, now lower your carbs a quarter cup. Next week, lower your carbs a quarter cup when your weight stops. So eventually you're eating nothing, and you have to do more or eat less to lose weight. But it's very easy to manage, because everyone, if you follow it, will lose some weight, but you're also going to lose a lot of muscle, and there's much more efficient ways of going about it. You could have taken some of those carbohydrates, had them at a certain time, and been able to spare muscle or put on muscle during a prep, versus eating these carbohydrates at a time where you don't need it. Because when they do macro dieting or count your macros, it's good for the individual that's going to work every day in the office, right? But you take a competitive bodybuilder, and not just that, you put one on hormones on top of it, that body turns into a machine. You need to feed it nutrients at certain or any given time. And if you're lacking those nutrients at those times, you don't take advantage of a window that could have changed your entire progress or for your prep. So you start taking carbohydrates in increments all day, when you could have had them at certain times where you don't store fat, but you swell up glycogen, you super compensate. It doesn't make any sense. You're not being optimal. And that's what these diets are. And they don't know if the client's responding bad to food or if it's drugs. They don't do any of this. They just tell you eat these foods in this amount. And then maybe they have a food allergy. Maybe they don't respond good to those foods, but they're eating it, and they're just following these protocols and busting their ass for nothing.
Coach Trevor, talk to us about nutrient timing. Is that something you're big on?
Huge, yeah. And it's not to the point where they say, oh, eat egg whites mixed with chicken, mixed with this. It's not like that. But, you know, you look at carbohydrates as a fuel source and glycogen. You look at protein, there's no storage device for protein. So that has to be a constant, right? And then fats, that's also another source of energy. And it does have a place to store. And you have to go about your day accordingly. So when would you, especially when you're trying to put muscle on and lose fat, you always want to be doing this at the same time. Hormones really make that possible, but so does nutrient timing. There's windows of opportunities like they talked about, you know, after the gym. You can have an influx of carbohydrates for an insulin response, but not stored fat, which is true, and you get an upregulated protein synthesis, but you also can't redline it all day because you spill over, you wear out receptors. So you have multiple times during a day where you're doing one-time fat burning, one-time muscle building, a maintenance kind of thing like Milos talks about, very similar. Because if you keep your body in any direction, homeostasis happens. It happens with every cell on Earth. You just beat this and you continue to grow. You can lose weight forever.
This is something I really agree with you on Coach Trevor. What I call it cyclic ketogenic dieting. You can call it whatever you want, but fats are essential. You need fats. Carbs technically aren't essential, but carbs are very, very important for building muscle because they keep the muscle full, they fuel hard training. So just thinking about logically is like you need both of these macronutrients. What would make the most sense to incorporate in your diet? You know, have carbs before and after your workout because that's when you're going to use them, and the rest of the day have protein and fat.
Yeah, so, and it depends on the person's metabolism and what they're taking as well. These people, for me, if the more drugs I took, say T3, T4, thyroid medication, anything that sped my metabolism up, I had to eat that much more. And I had to eat carbohydrates every meal because even at rest, I was burning so much, my body couldn't keep up burning fat. You can only break down fat at such a level. It's impossible to burn 10 pounds of fat in one day. It just doesn't happen. It needs other sources, quicker sources, i.e. carbohydrates. So the more drugs I would take, the more carbohydrates I would have to eat. Some bodybuilders are the same. That's why some people you shouldn't even put them on T3 for a contest. They don't need it. You can do this with a diet because when you add that, now you have to increase your calorie count or your calorie demand. And if you don't, your metabolism stops. And you start breaking down protein. And that's what happened with me. And it happens with lots of clients. And they don't realize this. That when your metabolism goes up and you don't match this, it's going to stop. Cortisol goes up. You start holding on to fat and you break down protein every single time. Doesn't matter what you're taking. Cortisol, endogenous cortisol will beat any hormone you can inject into your body.
Tell us a little bit about, you know, we don't have much time left. I think we got, 15 minutes left. But tell us a little bit about training because we don't talk about training enough. You used to be a skinny guy. You're a pretty muscular guy. Most of our listeners are audio, but they can go online and look at what you look like. You're a pretty muscular guy. You know, most guys would kill for your body. So you built a lot of muscle mass over the years. What are mistakes that our listeners are making in the gym that are preventing them from building muscle?
It's hard to tell you this because we have to, with bodybuilders, especially with the mindset of a bodybuilder, or I would say the dysfunctional mind sometimes, we have to make mistakes to learn. Not everyone can just listen to somebody else and go, okay, he knows what he's talking about, I'm just going to follow it. I haven't met many people like that. So for the most part, they have to just make their own mistakes and learn. But if I give advice from what I see, it's getting in the gym and lifting like Ronnie Coleman or lifting heavy. The number one thing people miss is the mind to muscle. And my physique, even on testosterone therapy for so long, it wasn't until after a surgery where I was not able to I couldn't put 20 pounds over my head. I had to find ways to isolate a muscle and stimulate it. That mind to muscle connection, still to this day, I've never gone over 225 pounds on a bench press. Never had to. I can make 30 pounds on bicep curls beaten up. You've seen videos. I mean, the videos are out there. You can make a weight feel extremely heavy and painful, and you can get less reps. Just many ways of going about hypertrophy. And it's all about mind to muscle. So if I could say one thing, it's learning mind to muscle. And I mean, how I learned certain parts, actually, I always tell this story, was I ate an edible and I could start feeling every muscle in my body. And I was watching Flex Wheeler videos pose. And I would go try and do this in a mirror. And I actually would find those muscle groups watching these videos. And it wasn't until then my back started growing, because I was deadlifting 5 plates in high school. You know, my squats were 5 plates. But I didn't have big legs. I didn't have a big back. And the only reason was I was not squeezing the muscle I was trying to work. And that's all it is mind to muscle. Most people nowadays it's a little different, because there are a lot of pretty boys in the sport and they just want to look good. So they forgot what training hard is. But from what I remember, everybody trained hard. They trained so hard, we always got injured. So most people trained hard at the time. I think now maybe that's a variable too. They're not given training what it needs, because without the training, the drugs and food don't work either. It's a combination.
Coach Trevor, a lot of our listeners want to know what's next for you.
So the things that I've always wanted to do in the past, right? You saw right before, let's say, like a year and a half ago, I was really into stem cells, because I had used certain ways of using stem cells to build muscle, but very dangerous ways at the time. I couldn't just go buy stem cells, at 20 years old, 25 years old. So I was going about it the other way, the way I've learned, through, I guess, various ways, but there's hormones and peptide hormones you can take to do this, and it's outside the realm of what these peptide companies sell. Well, then I get access to stem cells, an actual stem cell company or clinic, and then a laboratory. And with this laboratory, being a licensed facility and having licensed people working and having access to everything you could think of, has now given me the opportunity, all the ideas and things that I have learned, I can now put into something applicable or into studies, even a case study we've talked about. So it's Tony Huge Labs. And it will be Tony Huge Labs. We're doing blood work there. So you don't have to go to your doctor and tell your doctor you're taking steroids and always have that in your profile and your label the rest of your life. There's a lot of things that I've done in the sport, which is why they call me Coach Trevor, even though I wouldn't say I'm a coach, but things that they don't do for bodybuilders that might be used somewhere in some country for humans, but using it for bodybuilding and having a place where I can do this now, that's what the next step is for me. It's always been there. That's what I've always wanted to do. It's anti-aging, things to do with telomeres, longevity. It goes so far beyond the realm of just steroids, and these all connect hand in hand with bodybuilding. The steroids have been around forever. Helping people is one of the reasons that keep me going in this, because I've lost the love for the sport, completely lost the love for the sport. But being able to help somebody correct the mistakes that I made, seeing the same problems that I know this guy's going to die next year, I could fix that and make his physique better. When I die, I'll feel better about myself. But I do enjoy helping people. But the biggest part about all of this is furthering the science behind it. So all these experiments, like we're going to do one on Big Luca from Gold's Gym, all these things, they don't have these studies. No, there's no studies on humans. They stopped human steroid testing and protocols a long time ago because, for whatever reason, it's beyond me. I don't even want to get into that. But we can take it to the next level outside of steroids, because steroids are the past. These things have been outdated for a long time, and many people will tell you that. So, even as far as SARMs are people think they laugh about it, but when I can take a physique to another level on SARMs versus a steroid, that will tell you something about the potential. It's just we have nobody there to study it. Nobody has the labs to do this. But now we have Tony Huge Labs. We have people that help put this all together. And it's a real facility. So that's the next step.
Is it actually called Tony Huge Labs?
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Are you guys not worried about like the FDA or someone shutting you guys down if you're so open about testing for steroids and things like that?
No, everything is licensed. Everything we do is recorded, documented. There's nothing FDA could sit within the lab. We can have them sitting there all day. There's nothing, one, going on, but two, those are the people we want to work with. If we can work with them and get in with them, that could change the game, because that's the place you have to go to get this thing approved or get these studies to be done. It's through the FDA. So if we can get them in there, that'd be better. But no, I'm not worried at all. Testing a steroid, that they're already doing that. Everyone does that. It's just, and then helping people on top of it. Yeah, I mean, go ahead and lock me up for it, but that's not going to happen.
The thing you got going for you is Tony's a lawyer, so he probably knows that what you're allowed and not allowed to do.
Yeah. Oh, I have an understanding of that too, but when it comes to the FDA, it doesn't matter who you are. I mean, maybe even Donald Trump, I don't think. So IRS, FDA, you don't mess with them, you just comply with them. And so we do that, and there's no worry.
Do you think Donald Trump's on TRT?
With that gut, no, but he should be. So if we can reach out to Donald Trump. Maybe we can get his hormones. We'll do his work, his lab work. We can get him on some TRT therapy, maybe some growth. Melanotan. He doesn't have to use the orange tanner anymore. He can just use it'll look great. There's a lot we could do for him. So if anyone knows a way, Dana White, get a hold of him. Let's do it.
We know he's on finasteride for sure. That's been documented. No, I'm not kidding. He is. So
I believe it.
That's probably why his wife, she doesn't live with him. He probably has no sex drive from all that finasteride.
We're doing the Stormy Daniels thing and all these prostitutes. Yeah, if he's on that medication. I mean, that would be my case in court, but I'd give every one of those people, but here, take a few of these. Next week, we're going to do an experiment, and let's put them right there on the spot. The case is closed, done.
So tell us a little bit about, like, in the past year, what have you kind of found out that will blow our listeners away that kind of goes against the grain? Because I love hearing the gurus in the industry get cucked or proven wrong, because we used to have a smart ass over the years. And he used to say stupid things. Like, one of the things he used to say is EQ is a horse steroid. So one day I actually proved to him, I was like, that EQ was human grade for 20 years. And he was like, I proved it to him, and he basically shut up from then on. So I love proving the gurus wrong. Yeah. Tell us something that will prove the gurus wrong that are out there.
Okay, actually the best thing, and actually it works out really good because Enhanced Athlete doesn't sell SARMs, but SARMs is the biggest thing to happen to bodybuilding that people don't even realize that it happened. Getting into what they are, you're taking can I say synthetics? It is a synthetic steroid. They legally call these things selective androgen receptor modulators because at the given milligram, it only affects those cells, just like, say, Anavar. What happens if you take 5 to 10 milligrams of Anavar? As a man, nothing. You have testosterone production. You don't gain a single pound. You don't even feel it. Take 10 milligrams of a SARM, you start putting muscle on. Some people only take 5 to 10 milligrams. It is not a selective androgen receptor modulator. It is a synthetic steroid that has more anabolic properties than androgenic. And if you were to increase this, does the same thing, but now we have a class that's synthetic where there's an infinite potential. We have no idea what else they can do. Some of these studies, when you go by these studies, there's legit studies now coming out of Japan. When they talk about YK11, let's say for an example, lowering myostatin, well, they'll go, oh, nandrolone lowers myostatin. Anything anabolic will lower this for a given short amount of time until homeostasis happens and it comes back to normal. With YK11, it does it just like a DHT would, but at the same time, there's another pathway that is working to lower it outside the realm of an anabolic steroid. So the potential behind it, people have no idea. And then being the last few years, what I did 2 years ago was in another country, was compound the first, well, at the time, injectable SARMs. I made all the SARMs that are out there into an injection. And the reason for doing this was things like the SR9009 only has a 2% absorption given it orally. This is one of the most amazing drugs. If you inject it, that's something you can inject. You run the day before without it versus the next day, you would literally go almost 1.5 times, the distance you went, your VO2 max, everything starts to change. You take it orally, nothing happens. It's same thing with, let's say, Dianabol. Injecting Dianabol versus taking it orally, 2 different drugs. It's like equipoise. You take Winstrol, water-based Winstrol versus a tablet, 2 different drugs. Anadrol oral versus Anadrol inject, 2 different drugs. So we have a class of synthetic steroids now where we don't even know what these do orally in high doses. We've had athletes like Kane Bishop in the past and PJ do very high amounts of these SARMs because of what I was hearing from people at the expos, gaining so much weight off high dose, thinking it was dumb. Well, doing it this way, they while on steroids, put on weight past what they were at before. And so it's the word SARM should not be used. And I think if people can look at this and actually put the effort into the research, there's infinite potential. Site enhancement is another thing. People are still using the oil-based compounds, right? They're using synthol, things with like PGF in there to inflame it, but it causes scar tissue and it causes muscle damage, and eventually your muscle atrophies. So there's site enhancements that we've made, as you guys have seen, but now having the machinery and some of the equipment, we can make these things last 1.5 years in your body, which costs about $1,500 per couple of cc's here in the United States. Kratom, for example, is another one. Kratom, injectable ATP. I could go on for a very long time, but these are all things we're doing in that laboratory. But if I could tell you one thing these people are getting wrong right now is the SARMs, for sure.
Which SARM is your favorite? Really quick.
Probably between the two. I mean, it's too hard to say. Rad 140 would probably be mine, but I call it the Trembone because I get very bad, I would say, just like Trembone, very bad emotional response to it. But LGD was probably my favorite because it was the first I ever compounded, very simple. And like the injectable, that's when I put on, I think, 18 pounds. But during that time, I was only on TRT, so it was a big difference for me. I always get the most results with no side effects on that drug. For women, S23 at a low dose happens to be my favorite for them. And it keeps changing because YK11, the way YK11 works, I won't tell you the group of people, but there's a group of people that kill this sport that are doing really well that are using SARMs because they understand it. So for me, I don't know what my favorite is because we learn something new every day and there's so little studies published on it.
Really quick, Cardarine, I just want to say Cardarine, it's not technically a SARM. It's a PPAR agonist, but what's your thoughts on Cardarine? You mentioned SR earlier, but what about Cardarine?
Cardarine, I think, is misunderstood in some ways, and I think is also people will use it to make up for being lazy, just like steroids. I think in combination, Cardarine can be an incredible compound. supporting from fat loss, you know, everything it claims is true, but I think people use it or abuse it and then claim that maybe it doesn't work or they have bad cholesterol when they were taking it because they were relying on this to do something. But Cardarine, I think with the SR9009 in combination are two of the best when it comes to how they work. Because yes, it's not a SARM, but the fat loss, everything else that comes along with these two, endurance, it can be unbeatable. Again, the dosing on these things are different too. The SR9009 doesn't absorb orally, 2%. You inject that, now you have a Cardarine times 10. You know, it's just infinite potential. People are taking such little amounts. Go ahead and take 5 milligrams of D-bol and tell me what happens, or Anadrol. So I think Cardarine, though, is misunderstood when it comes to, you know, they rely on a drug to give them some benefit, like relying on growth hormone. But Cardarine is I can tell you right now, one of the favorites around the world, and people are still buying the same every month.
Coach Trevor, this is really interesting stuff. And I actually think you're just scratching the surface on what's going to be a new evolution of bodybuilding. Because what's really amazing about SARMs is that they have very low androgenic properties. Because the problem with steroids is if you have an androgenic steroid like Tren, it's great. You know, it's going to increase your strength. It's going to get you crazy good results. But those crazy androgenic properties are what give you the side effects, the hair loss, the mood swings, you can't sleep, the night sweats. So that's what's really beautiful about the SARMs is that they have the same anabolic properties, but because the androgenic rating is so low, you can get pretty aggressive with your dosage and the side effects will be pretty minimal.
Yeah, that's why they call it selective, because they found a way to increase the anabolic part of the steroid so high and minimize the androgenic problems that you're getting from a steroid, which is what designer steroids are in the first place. We take Primobolan, and why? Why is Primobolan still so effective? Why are we taking anabolics? They're all designer steroids because we want to minimize the side effects of testosterone, such a dirty drug, and increase the anabolic nature of it. When you do this, now 5-10 milligrams works. And at 5 or 10 milligrams, do that with a steroid and nothing's going to happen. But you're still getting results because they're so anabolic. You're just not getting side effects. And nowadays, kids judge steroids based off side effects and results off side effects. So that's why everyone gets testosterone in every drug they take, and they think it's amazing because they get side effects. And then you don't get a side effect, and you get muscle tissue built without all the extra water, without all the health problems associated with it. And then all of a sudden, this is a shit drug. You know, it's just a way of thinking, I guess. Side effects is a way to judge a steroid. It's just a horrible way of thinking.
I think another problem with SARM is that there's so much fake product on the market.
They're expensive.
Yeah.
But and there's a reason they're expensive, because if we can get everybody collectively to at least be open to the idea of it, the price, there's going to be a market for it, a higher market, and the price comes down. That's all that needs to happen. The same with steroids. The market went up, and now steroids are everywhere you go, and they're dirt cheap.
This is really interesting stuff. Coach Trevor, how can our listeners find out more about you? Do you have Instagram, anything like that?
Yes, so the way they can do, we have a newsletter email, and we also have the webpage. We have the Instagram, which is what I do is just use to go through Tony's. So anytime someone wants to get a hold of me, they go through either Tony Huge on his Instagram or Facebook. That's probably the best way to do it, because the last time I had a social media, there's just too many emails to go through, you know. So as long as it's filtered out and I can get in contact with people this way, it's the best, because Anthony is always on his phone.
So Anthony's running your agent.
Yeah, he's running into walls on his phone all day. So I don't want to do that, so I send everyone through him. They get a hold of me through.
I don't know how he does it either. I hate it.
I've been doing it last few days, not social media, but working from my phone. And multitasking has been the most frustrating thing because of all the errors and mistakes you make. I think him being a lawyer has helped that, because he can do it second nature now, where he's driving, well, I won't say driving, but he can do many things while he's texting.
Well, Coach Trevor, we really appreciate you doing this interview. Go fuck some Thailand prostitutes for us.
I will do that for you guys. Just for you guys though, because.
Steve,
well, thank you guys. I really enjoyed it. It was the first time on here, and anytime you guys want, let us know. I'll be on anytime. It's a good way to get the information out, and there's just a lot of people need some help, and I'm not here to sell anything. I just want to help people, really. So yeah, anytime, just let me know.
Steve, got any closing remarks?
Yeah, I guess some lady boys while you're at it too, besides the prostitutes.
Yeah, I knew it would happen. All right. All right. So next month, no, I won't be on here. Fuck you. But no, there's real out here.
For your host, Trevor Kouritzin, for my co-host, Steve Smee, and for our special guest, Coach Trevor, this has been another episode of Evolutionary Radio. Live your life, look good doing it. Thanks for listening.